Yes, VFX world. Welcome to episode 2 of the VFX Script Podcast with Motus VFX. Today's guest started off at DNEG, then went on to MPC, and is now executive producer at Ingenuity and VP of Ghost VFX. So, Mr. Patrick Dean, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Thanks for being on.
No worries.
We'll get into the VFX stuff shortly. However, there was something on your profile that cropped up that I was quite interested about. My favourite show, architecturally. You actually was a runner and then an assistant on Grand Designs.
Yeah, that's right. Just your favourite show, architecturally, is it? Right? Just the architecture, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a very long time ago. That was probably 2011, 2010. And yeah, a world away from where, what I'm doing now. But ironically, it was through a really great way into the industry. Grand Designs was a Talkback Thames production, Fremantle Media now, but Talkback Thames was traditionally, it was a company set up by Griff Rhys-Jones, Mel Smith, two comedians, huge British comedians. They started a production company and were bought out, which then created Talkback Thames. But Talkback Thames did a number of shows: Grand Designs, Celebrity Juice, The Apprentice, X Factor. All sort of shows we probably grew up watching, really. Yeah. I mean, maybe not as a kid, Grand Designs, but maybe as you get slightly older. And yeah, they used to offer like a scheme for runners, really, people getting into the industry. It was 6 months as an office runner. So I was based in Soho on Newman Street. And you'd do the day-to-day, getting people coffees, dropping post off in production executives' offices, cleaning, sitting on reception. But what they used to offer to the runners, there were 6 of us. Within the 6 months, you'd spend one day on one of their productions. So like I said, it could be Celebrity Juice, it could be Nevermind the Buzzcocks, Grand Designs, The Apprentice. And you'd spend a day on location. So you used to go down to Riverside Studios in Hammersmith, or you'd go to somewhere in Scotland and shoot for a day on Grand Designs. And at the end of the 6 months, you would have the opportunity to interview for one of the shows, whichever show you sort of were most interested in. Yeah. And I was 21, 22 at the time, like fresh out of university, didn't know what I wanted to do. And Grand Designs offered this job where it was like, well, I can go and spend 5 days, like I said, in Scotland or in Newcastle or in Brixton with a cameraman, an editor, an edit producer, a director, and be on location. And I was a location assistant. So I was doing the sort of dog bodies work. It was like getting coffees and standing in the rain or standing at night in the rain. But it was sort of a great experience of coming out of doing, every day running in a studio to being on location and interacting with Kevin. I mean, Kevin's not, he's not Leonardo DiCaprio, but he's talent. He's someone who is respected and is the person in front of the camera. So yeah, I did that for 6, 7, 8 months maybe. And it was great. It was a great way into the industry. And like I said, it was very different from what I'm doing now, but as a scheme for young people who knew they wanted to get into the media industry in some way, whatever that looked like, it was a great opportunity. And I don't know if those opportunities really exist for people trying to get into the industry anymore.
No, it's interesting. And wicked that was your kind of avenue. Olivia, who was on last week, totally different route to market. So it just shows that there's not a set way that you kind of get into visual effects, which kind of leads me on to, being on Grand Designs and then switching and making that move to DNEG. What happened there?
It was just opportunity, really. A role came up at DNEG. DNEG were on Shaftesbury Avenue at the time, which was like the Bank of China building. Yep. They were looking for someone in editorial, again, an edit assistant. So it was someone who was sort of the most junior person in the department. I think my sister worked there at the time. John Carter and Mars was the show that everyone in Soho was working on. DNEG were a huge vendor on that at the time. They needed some help in editorial. So I applied. I knew someone at DNEG and I got the opportunity. And it wasn't so much wanting to work in VFX. I think it was, like I said, opportunity. It was, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but there's an opportunity here to do something. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if I like it, if I'll be good at it. But it was just taking an opportunity and running with it, really. And yeah, got straight in there. John Carter was sort of halfway through production. And again, it was like being injected into this absolutely mental world of VFX and filmmaking, and DNEG being, still one of the biggest out there. It was incredible. It was a great start into VFX.
No, 100%. Yeah, I'm sure there's some stories that we'll maybe discuss another time.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But I mean, yeah, that's awesome. And again, looking back at the experience and the transitions, you was in editorial for quite some time. And then, by the looks of things, decided to switch things up, went into being a coordinator. What was the thought process behind that? And, was there any pros and cons that were going through the mind? Was it just a split decision? Kind of what was happening at that point?
So when I joined DNEG, like I said, I was in a very junior role and worked my way up in the department, and eventually took on shows as a VFX editor, albeit a vendor side. And then when the peak of VFX really hit episodic, the episodic world, we're talking pre-Game of Thrones even here, DNEG started up an episodic department, DNEG TV. So I actually left the feature side and went over to the TV department, DNEG TV, and they were looking for an editor. And I put my hand up and was interested in it, and got the job. And I was the only person doing that job in the department. We were working on, Mr. Selfridge and Outlander, the series 1, and Harry Hill, the movie, and Death in Paradise, series 1. So this is we're talking a long time ago now, and a very different market to what we're working in now. The department grew because episodic grew and the need for VFX in TV grew. So I think we eventually, when I stepped down as head of editorial, I think we had 8 editors just in the TV department. I think feature side probably had 10 or 12. And by no means was it the peak of my career, but probably worked on 30, 40 shows as a VFX editor, which ranged from everything you can imagine. And I just felt at the time like I had achieved what I'd wanted to achieve in that role. That role's very different now. So, I don't want to be disparaging to VFX editors now, but I'd hit a ceiling of what I wanted to do and I felt like I could do. We had 4 execs running the TV department at the time who have now gone off and they're very senior at ILM. And they were very understanding and very supportive of my decision. And I think it was also an understanding that there's a lot of overlap, particularly now, more so now than then, that there's an overlap with VFX editorial and production coordinating. Okay. And so I left that, moved into production, and I think to your question about the pros and cons, I think we always fear when stepping into something new that, oh, well, I know that software. I know how to communicate this problem. I know how to converse with these people. Am I going to go into something different? I don't know how to do that anymore. My safety net's gone. But I think I think most people would agree with this when they go to do something new, that actually the building blocks of most roles, they're the same, really. Yep. I'm not saying a VFX supervisor and a producer are the same role in any means, but being a clear communicator, being supportive of people, giving people direction, they share those similarities. So it was a nervous move and something that I thought about. I think I thought about a lot. I don't know. It was 10 years ago. I was a lot younger than now, but it was a sensible move, I think, at the time, and a move that I definitely don't regret. And yeah, it sort of really started, my career from then to where I am now, really.
No, that's awesome. I think that it's cool that you had that transition. I think it's nice for people to, again, listen to. Sometimes in jobs, it doesn't have to be VFX. It's almost like, this is my job. I have to. That's my route now. That's the way I've got to go. So the fact that you managed to mix it up and have an awesome career is great for people to hear, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully gives people that confidence that, if you have been doing something for 5 years, you can still switch it up, and there's skill sets that are transferable.
Yeah. I mean, if you speak to, I think, most senior people in the industry, senior being, people who have been doing it for a long time, and that's VFX supervisors, directors, producers, executive producers, and you look at their CVs or their resumes, they didn't start as directors. They might have worked in a film processing lab or whatever. And I think it's just about understanding that I think there's a pressure for a lot of young people now with more university courses, I think, and I'm not, again, speaking disparagingly of university courses, but where it's like, I have a degree in this, therefore I'm going to go and do this. And I think the advantage of being the most junior person in the team, or being doing the most junior role, is that you've got so much opportunity ahead of you. No one's saying you're now doing that. That's the person, you're in that box, and that's you for the rest of your life. And it's having the understanding that make the most of those opportunities. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You're still 24, 23. Do something different again. And not putting too much pressure on yourself to think, well, this is my career now, and that's me, whether I like it or not. And if you don't like it, then you need to go and do something different.
Totally agree. No, I think that's a great outlook. And, obviously you went and did that. You then went and joined another machine, MPC. I won't ask you which your favorite is on this. You can tell me later.
Yeah.
However, two huge powerhouses in the VFX industry.
Mm-hmm.
How similar were they? Or was there huge differences? We don't need to talk about the pros and cons, but in terms of the way that those facilities operate, was that a seamless switch, or was it completely different?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think a lot of people out there would disagree with me, maybe, but I think fundamentally they're two VFX houses. Mm-hmm. So it would be wrong to say there was huge differences. I think the biggest differences in any company, and the biggest differences, really in cultures, is the people and their ambitions and their aspirations, and how they set their ambitions out and get to that place. When DNEG TV started, so I spent most of my time in the TV department at DNEG. It was with a group of people who, like I said, were very ambitious about the future of VFX in the episodic world, and that was very different to feature, the way that DNEG worked in the feature world and the industry worked in the feature world. So when I went to MPC, it was a group of us who were all familiar faces. I'd worked with a lot of people previously, and we went over to build the episodic department of MPC. So again, it was a lot of the same aspirations, a lot of the same familiar faces, familiar goals, joint strategies on how to be successful. So I think the real difficulty of the leap from DNEG to MPC was that it happened over COVID, and suddenly COVID made us all work very differently. So yeah, I don't think there was fundamentals that were different in cultures, but we were doing fundamentally the same jobs. It was COVID that really pushed us in a way that we had to work, a different way that we had to work.
I mean, I wasn't even going to bring that up, but let's, those challenges in COVID.
Yeah.
Again, joining such a company like MPC, how was that? Did you sail through? What were the challenges? What were what good things came of it? I don't know.
I think the good thing that came of it was, I remember thinking this recently of being at home on a call. We basically weren't allowed, for obvious reasons, at DNEG to take our laptops out of the building.
Yeah.
You fast forward to now, the working dynamic of VFX and the film industry is so completely different. I often look back and I talk to people about this in the studio now. It's like, no wonder we were in the office 7 days a week, because it was the only place you could work. So you naturally were given a lot more freedom. When you give people a lot more freedom, and their work-life balance is better, and they have time in their day that isn't just in the studio or commuting, things feel easier. Things feel less heavy. So it really like opened our eyes into, okay, so is this the future of VFX now? Are we not always in the studio? Are we not always, committed to commuting to work every day? But the downside of that was you had less FaceTime with people, and not having FaceTime in this industry is massively detrimental. So I think when we started doing it, it was new to all of us. Obviously, COVID was, my actual last day at DNEG was the first day of COVID.
Wow, okay.
Which is quite a nice sort of like divide. But it was just all completely new. And then when you do something completely new at a new company, and like I said earlier, you've left your safety net. I was at DNEG for 8 years or whatever it was. You've left your safety net, and you're thinking, oh, if I made the wrong decision here, this is so different to how I thought it'd be in terms of COVID and working from home and everything like that. So it was a strange time. We all went through it, and we all came out the other side in certain degrees. But
yeah, different shapes, sizes,
exactly,
spaces. Right. Okay. So you've started a job at the start of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to 2023, and you embark on this new exciting position with Ingenuity just before the absolute catastrophic strikes that has just smashed everyone to bits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talk to me about that. What was the navigations? How did you get through it personally? And also, you've got this pressure of setting up this new arm of a business in probably the most brutal time you could ever ask for. What was that like?
Well, it was a strange time. I mean, we just had my son, and then
congratulations.
Thank you. And then I decided to leave MPC. Had actually a really great time at MPC. It was one of the highlights of my career so far. And decided to leave. Didn't have anything lined up. There was a few conversations going on, and I was at that time, I think I was a little bit sort of exhausted from, I think it's fair to say, the industry. I think we'd been through COVID. I think, as I said, all the pros we got from COVID, there was a lot of cons. I think MPC, like many other studios, was now having to find their feet again after us all not being in the office to being back in the office, and clients being happy for us all to work from home to suddenly not being work from home. So I left MPC just sort of a little bit exhausted by the industry, a little bit unsure of where I stood in it, still really unsure of what I wanted to do. That's never completely changed from when I left university, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I still, if you're so sure on what you want to do, you're maybe missing out on an opportunity. So I was still a little bit unsure where I wanted to stand. And then Ingenuity got in touch and said, we're looking for someone to sort of head up our London studio. Thought, is this completely mental? I don't know if this is the right thing, blah, blah, blah. Then met the team, met Dave Lebensfeld and Grant and Matt, and just sort of like instantly clicked with them, really. And I think that's always been the same throughout my career and the work. If you click with the people and you buy into them very quickly, it's that, that's a big selling point, right?
Sure.
So they explained to me the ambitions of what they wanted to achieve from the UK, the ambitions they wanted for me and for the studio as a whole. And like I said, bought into it, went over to LA, met them for a week, and went over to the Ingenuity studio in downtown LA, and I felt like, this is a really cool place to be. This studio tap into a lot of the things I'm looking for. So it was a yes, and embarked on this venture, which was Ingenuity in the UK. It's been 20 years in America, North America, Canada. And it was take what we do in Ingenuity in the US and do it in the UK. So, we broke that down very quickly into, well, we need work, we need people.
Yep.
People, it's not necessarily easy to find people, But I knew that if we were going to make a success of this, strikes wasn't even a thing yet.
Got you.
It was, well, we have to employ people that we trust and that trust us and are going to buy into it. So Dave Saul joined almost as soon as I joined, who's our supervisor in the UK. And we tapped into people that we had worked with for a long time at DNEG, MPC, or both. And it didn't take a lot of convincing for those people to say, yeah, we're in. So we looked at the roles which were necessary for us. You know, by no means were we a new business. Ingenuity, like I said, had been around for 20 years. But we were a new business in the UK. We had no footprint. We had no reputation in the UK. No one knew of us. They knew of me and they knew of Dave, but they didn't know of Ingenuity. So we went into it, like I said, so what do we need? Well, we need maybe another VFX soup. We need a VFX soup with a 3D background and a 2D background. We need maybe an animator. We need a coordinator and we need an editor. We weren't going into it with, we need a head of production. We need a head of studio. We need all of this. It was, what's the core team we need to start with? And that's where we started. Then it was about finding work. And we know lots of clients. We know lots of clients from our time at DNEG and MPC who had very good experiences of working with us as individuals. And we reached out to them. And I want to say, luckily, you know, I think luck is a big element in any new business.
Yep.
You know, you can plan, you can strategize, but timing and luck is massive. If you set up a new business and you have bad luck, unfortunately, it's you know, luck literally isn't on your side. So the clients bought into us, and I think within 3 months of establishing Ingenuity, I think we had 6 shows awarded.
Wicked.
And again, luck was a big element. We had worked on a show, and from that show, the director was going off to do another show, the producer was doing a show, and the post-soup was doing another show. And they all wanted to work with us again. Timing was perfect. They were just about to go into prep. Little did we know at the time, but none of those shows were going to be affected by the strike. Luck again, just coincidentally. So we hit the ground running, and Dave went off to Croatia, I think like 2 months into starting, and went off on a shoot all summer. So it was sort of back to me on my own in the UK, like figuring stuff out. We need office space. Okay, we have an editor now. We need this. Okay, we have a coordinator now. We need this. And it was figuring it out as we went along, but obviously having this infrastructure behind us of the studio who had been doing it for such a long time in North America, it fell into place relatively easily and relatively quickly. And then the strikes hit, obviously.
Yeah.
And we had this ambition, and we knew we had to have this ambition for the first, you know, say 2 to 3 years of, we are a VFX studio and we will provide VFX. We are not entering into the market here to be a VFX studio who specialize in animation or environments or whatever. We are a VFX studio and we're here to provide VFX. So if your show has £10,000 VFX budget, come and talk to us. If you have £1 million, please come and talk to us. And we sort of made ourselves available and opened our arms to clients who maybe were looking for something new or looking for some familiar, trusted faces on projects. And what that meant going into and working through the strikes was that we were very agile. And that comes from the bread and butter of what the North America team do really and have done for such a long time is, you know, 2023, Ingenuity North America did 250 shows. Now, you don't do 250 shows as a VFX facility if you're giving yourself a niche portion of the market to say, oh no, we do VFX, but we only do this type of VFX. Or we do VFX, but if it's under this amount of revenue, sorry, we can't really do it. And that's understanding for some studios.
Yes. Because
they have overheads that are bigger than ours and whatever. So we always had this thought process and ambition to be agile and be approachable. So the strikes hit and we had clients who were doing music videos or they were doing commercials or they were doing projects that luckily, like I said, weren't affected by the strikes. So it gave us and gave our clients the option for a VFX studio who could sort of lend their hand to multiple things. So agility was, I think, the biggest thing that got us through the strikes, but having that mindset of this is our ambition. We're a VFX studio. We are not a VFX studio who do this or do this or do this.
Yeah, makes sense. And great to hear that you was able to diversify and do different things. I guess to a level probably exciting to some of the people on board that might have never had the chance to do a music video.
Yeah.
Or done a commercial. And just sort of going back to when you first started and luck was on your side in that sense. And I completely understand that. But I think it's also important that, you know, those 8 years that you spent at DNEG, the time at MPC, it all factors in and actually, you know, the reason that luck was there was because of what you'd created prior to that. You know, and it's awesome to hear that you guys got through. You know, and COVID, some people really struggled. Some people just had shows that kind of happened when this remote situation became allowed. So that helped them get through. So I think it swings and roundabouts. And, you know, like I said, that was at the start. So that got you through some of the way. We're still going through it and having battles now. So fair play to you. You know, I mean, 2025 in a couple of months, realistically. How are you seeing things? Is there more conversations happening? Are you speaking to the States a little bit more? Do you feel like shows are going to be coming through? What's the lay of the land?
It's an interesting time. I think what happens next year with the rebate and all the tax incentives and what have you in the UK is I don't think it's as black and white as some people say. It's going to have this huge impact on the UK and everything's going to be amazing. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for everyone that it is amazing. But it is naturally going to affect certain vendors more, better, worse than others. So again, for us, 80% of our yearly revenue is from repeat business.
Okay.
So it's sort of what happens unaffects our clients really, because they will, regardless of rebate, they will probably come back to us.
Yes.
And that's our business model, is like, you do a show, you do it well, they come back and they'll bring you an next show. I think for the biggest impact is going to have is the middle section of what is made. You know, the middle section of the market is like your 10, 15, $20 million VFX budget shows, maybe more on the episodic side than your features. More of that content is going to be made, and more good content is going to be made. We're at probably the most competitive the VFX UK market's ever been. I don't want to say that it's an oversaturated market, but it's a saturated market in vendors. I think that's a good thing. I think competition is good.
Yep.
Studios are splitting work out across more studios than traditionally they would. You know, some studios are capping a percentage of their work to a sole vendor. So what traditionally a show might have 2 to 3 vendors on it has now got 5 to 6 vendors on it.
Okay.
So I think overall it's going to have a positive impact, but we're heading into more of a competitive time. And I just hope that this unfortunate, as we call it, like a race to the bottom at the moment, we come out of that, of studios pricing work very cheap to make sure they get on the show, and the studios look at that and say, well, actually, where's the best fit for our work, as opposed to where's the quote unquote cheapest place for our work. So I think like the outlook by all means is a very positive one, but I think like we dealt with the post-COVID world and like we deal with the post-strike world, we just hope that there's a sensible hat on worn by someone looking at things about how and why work should go in various places.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, have people been approaching you because of this new incentive? Have you actually had conversations?
Yeah, there's been conversations with stateside, you know, the US side of studios, to say that they're very excited about it. They're looking forward to working more with the UK and putting more work into the UK. But I think there's still a feeling of unease. There's still a feeling of, you know, not putting all your your eggs in one basket. And I think it's a cautious approach.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. You know, we have gone through a stage when there was, it's strange to say, like too much work made and the studios couldn't keep up. So I hope, like I said, it's like a cautious, considered approach, albeit a really positive one overall for the industry and for facilities. Yeah,
100%. Because obviously France had the tax credit come through. You see people expanding out to there, and you know, is that going to be sustainable? Is the credit going to still be as powerful when the UK credit comes in? Does it actually matter to those people that have expanded? You know, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting about that race to the bottom. You know, I was looking at you know, the cost of per episode on some top episodic work. You know, and you're looking at sort of 20-30 mil per episode on certain things. From an uneducated point of view, it just doesn't really add up that the studios can't give that little bit more to ensure that the project is done amazingly. Because you know, we've seen it from their side. You give the work to someone who's underbid, and they might have not underbid for anything other than just needing the work, but then can't commit to that. If they then can't commit to finishing the show, it has to go back out to tender, and then they're spending more money anyway.
Yeah.
So
the story cycle of VFX in the UK.
And that's the thing, right? So that money that they have spent in the long term anyway, if that would have gone to a more thought out strategy, maybe it could have actually been more cost effective to the studio, but then actually been more of a margin for the vendor, which allows them to have a bit more of a safety net. You know, it's a shame when you hear small to medium facilities vendors kind of survive show to show. You know,
and that's the reality for many studios. Totally. Yeah,
and I mean, we need to ideally get to a point where there's a bit of a safety net for those people.
And that's the thing. I think that's when I say a considered and cautious approach. It's still an education for many clients, the VFX process and where their money gets put on screen, and that's an education that we sometimes have to deliver to our clients. You know, it's too easy to define a vendor's cost structure as expensive or cheap. It's like, well, define expensive if it's more than another vendor's, but the service is really good, the work's really good, or the service is really good, but the work maybe isn't quite as good as an even more expensive vendor. It's about defining what is expensive and what is cheap, right? If you buy something that's £500 and it lasts you 10 years, is that more expensive than something that's £50 that you have to buy every year for 10 years?
Yeah.
It's how you look at it, right? And that's, I think, on us, and that's the where crewing up and hiring people who clients trust, and it will eventually, the money side of it won't come into it. You're delivering a good service, good content, and the experience was good.
Yeah.
And you know, that's I don't blame any client who puts a show out to tender and there's 5 facilities and they go, that one, that's the cheapest one. There is a market for that, and there is some shows that has to, unfortunately, that happens. But it's an education. It's I think it's too easy to look at it and say, oh, well, it's unfair that it's gone to them because it's cheap. It's maybe that client's understanding of VFX is slightly different than other people's, and every show has to be approached differently.
For sure. It's very interesting. I mean, someone actually spoke to me this morning, and they've now gone from vendor to studio, and maybe more people switching codes that way could potentially be a good thing if they have the same thought process that individual had. You know, of we need to sort of bring these two businesses closer together. You know, I can only see that as a good thing. But yeah, look, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm always optimistic. You know, I'm always optimistic that we can make things happen, and and 2025 will be awesome. Everyone will get back to work, and I think just having a bit more awareness about these situations, because we could have a conversation at the pub about this, and there's 100,000 other people in VFX having the same conversation, just the two of them. On a platform where a bit more awareness is being raised, it just gets people thinking a little bit differently. You never know.
Yeah, I think having more people in the VFX industry understand fundamentally how the VFX industry operates is a positive thing. You read a lot on certain sites, Reddit, and those types of things about, this facility is underbid this and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of it is, it's no one's fault, but the fundamentals just aren't true or accurate about how businesses operate. And that's what they are. Facilities are businesses, how they have to operate, the pressures at which they operate under. And your how you still service a client as well as pay all of your overheads and all those things. And I think that there is a big perception in the VFX industry that it's like you get a show, you bid the show, you win the work, you make a load of money, and it's not that at all. And the bigger the VFX facility gets, the DNEGs, the MPCs, the frame stores, the harder it becomes. The bigger you get, the more overheads you get, the more people you have to employ. Your business model naturally has to change. The clients you have to interact with changes. The shows that are available to you change.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bigger you get, is the more difficult it is to come, back down. So I agree. I think that sharing that understanding of the fundamentals of actually how VFX works is really important. I don't think enough people really understand it.
No, wicked, and hopefully we can keep spreading that. I mean, I'm going to completely transition this now. I asked Olivia this last week, and I want to ask everybody this. I say one, but it can be multiple. Give me one peak of your VFX career so far.
I think doing what we've done at Ingenuity, taking on a show, being awarded a show as sole vendor, delivering that show and being awarded another show as sole vendor off the back of it is the peak for me, because I think it's when you trust in the process, you like to see the process paying off.
Yes.
And that for me is from start to finish. What greater compliment can a client pay you than bringing their next show to you? And for me and for all of the team who are involved, I was so happy for everyone when we got that news through that the show was awarded. And you believe in the process, you want it to pay off for everyone, and that for me was like, okay, this can work. It's not easy, but it can work. Maybe we do know what we're doing. Maybe it hasn't got to be as difficult as it is sometimes. So that for me is probably the peak of my career so far.
Love that answer, mate. Really appreciate you coming on.
No, good to be here.
I think it was super insightful. I've got no doubt that people will enjoy that, take something from it, and massive thanks for your time again, buddy.
No, thank you. Cheers.
Awesome.